I had to take a long break in the middle of my class today because I had a massive nosebleed that wouldn't stop.
Well, if you stop picking your nose, then maybe, just maybe,
It's all the cocaine.
you wouldn't bleed all over the place.
Picking
I would ask you how your day's been, how your week's been.
But you already know.
We already know because we just recorded another episode.
Shh, you're ruining the
I'm
illusion.
breaking the fourth wall of our audio podcast.
We just finished Phantom of the Paradise.
Oh, now you really did it.
Oh, just bleep it out then.
Yes, and thank God. So I had to choose a couple movies that would potentially be more upbeat.
Palate cleanser.
So of course, my three options. One of them was like a Holocaust movie, and this one, which is a wonderful '90s movie by the name of SLC Punk.
Matthew Lillard, right?
Matthew Lillard. I'm going from memory here. Annabeth Gish.
I wanted to say Jeremy Piven, but he was in PCU.
And the one that surprised me that I forgot over the years after I'd seen it one time was Jason Segel.
Ah.
Who's
Who
in
the
this
fuck
as
is
well.
Annabeth Gish?
Annabeth Gish is a wonderful actress. She seemingly replaced, well, not really replaced. You can't really replace David Duchovny on The X-Files.
Oh, she's okay
But
with Robert
she-
Patrick and Annabeth Gish.
Yes.
Okay, I remember now.
She came in and did that. I know I've seen her around in other things. I saw her at a concert the other week. By the other week, I mean like a year and a half ago.
About 75 weeks ago.
Yeah, you know. So
Did you yell out, "You were the bomb, X-Files, season 8 and 9.
I kind of wanted to. I'm sure she's doing something now, but I don't know what she's doing.
You were the bomb in Phantoms, yo."
Of the choices I presented to you, why did you pick this one?
I've heard good things about SLC Punk. I think it's one of those movies that people quote, but I don't realize they're quoting it because I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I think it's another one of these things, kind of like The Big Lebowski, where there's a big following for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would call this one cult following.
I don't feel like I've ever met any of those people.
Oh,
Every time I feel like everyone has seen this movie, I find out no one has.
I mean, it's not like I'm running into it every week or something, but I would say many times, more than 6 times in my life, I have run into somebody who is referencing SLC Punk, and then they go, SLC Punk. And I go,
What?
what? And they go, oh, never mind.
Like that's a what? I was just in Salt Lake City last week, and didn't get to go out into the city or anything. So my entire viewpoint of what the city is completely based on this movie. And
Isn't it like it's like a couple of punks moving to town with their families, and it's like a bunch of Mormons or something?
I mean, that's basically Utah in general.
Yeah, right.
I don't remember them ever having come to. I think they're already existing within the punk scene that exists.
I thought that was a sort of a fish out of water
If
story.
Utah is anything like Colorado, it's one of those weird things where you've got the heavy-duty Christians surrounding everyone, and from within that you get these weird offshoot groups like punks or Nazis or whatever.
People trying to stand out from
Stand
that
out,
crowd.
yeah. It's why It's why I feel like Colorado has so many weird crimes,
Because it's otherwise so homogenous.
like Columbine happening in a fairly Christian neighborhood. This is the other side of the Rocky Mountains, but still,
Yeah.
I can imagine that even though Mormons are a little bit more tame, I think, than your typical Christian families.
Depends on your perspective, but I take your point.
Yeah, they seem to. Yeah, now we're getting it onto a religion conversation. Maybe we should talk about that after the fact. But
Maybe.
what do you expect this movie to be?
Well, I thought it was basically Karate Kid with punks.
Okay, what made you think that?
I don't know what made me think that. I thought it was about these punks who move into like this really conservative Salt Lake City area.
What's your frame of reference? Like, what punk movies have you seen? Have you seen Sid and Nancy or any?
I've seen Sid and Nancy. I saw The Fabulous Stains with you.
Yeah. Okay.
What other punk movies are there? I cannot profess to be any kind of expert on the subgenre.
Good question. Can't think of any offhand.
That was it. That was everything. We've seen the entire...
I mean, there's got Rock and Roll High School, anything with the Ramones or...
Nope. I saw... was it Francis Ford Coppola who directed it? Some musical with Willem Dafoe as like some sort of like greaser punk looking guy. But I don't think that was punk. That was more like... There's more thug, not punk.
I mean, wasn't like one of the main actors in American Graffiti? Didn't he kind of look like William Dafoe as like a greaser, like if his hair was?
Did you just call him William Dafoe?
Maybe
it's Willem.
Willem.
Which guy in American Graffiti are you talking about?
I just remember somebody who kind of looks like him, but not quite. Hair slicked back, got a leather jacket on. He was like the cool kid, I think.
Like the Fonz.
Yeah, but not. I don't know. It's been a while. American Graffiti is one of those ones that's just like, it really is a timeless classic, but it's...
You might be thinking of the guy who drives the truck. He's like the racer.
Yeah, maybe.
And he faces off with Harrison Ford in the cowboy hat at the end.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, he's sort of a...
He's kind of cool, but he's kind of a goofball, too.
Right. He's trying too hard to be cool.
Right.
Yeah. We should do American Graffiti.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
That'd be a good one.
We've both seen it.
Yeah. Well, this is going to go on 1 week for years. We're going to do 52 of these a year.
Until we're old and dried out.
We're going to be dried out of movies here in no time.
I don't think so. They keep making more. I've told them to stop, but they keep making more.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't have time to catch up.
It's too many more. If you were to score this movie before we saw it?
Oh, I'm guessing it'll be like a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
I'm hoping. I mean, I guess I always hope for a movie to be that good, at least.
Well, it's been a long time since I've seen it, so I don't... This is one of those ones, like you said, you get it quoted to you all the time, so I only remember, like, a few little things here and there about the movie, and let's just watch this fucking movie.
Fine.
Shit,
man.
You made it through. I did well, even. My father was hell-bent on getting me to go to Harvard Law School like he had done when he was a kid. My father tried to get me to go right after I graduated high school.
Thank you for giving us an hour of your time. Your mother and I found this to be rather important. You finished high school. Thank God. Now it's your time to do good. This rebellion thing you're going through, I understand it. Not completely, but I respect it. Now you should think about what is right for you.
I mean, be free, darling. Always.
Yeah, be practical, Steve. You got a chance to go to Harvard. You got me as an alumnus that can't hurt.
But only if it makes you happy.
Look, if you want to rebel there, you can do it. I was there. I went to Woodstock. Me and the guys had a lot of fun. We did our thing there. We got behind some causes, though. We fought for some very strong causes. Collectively, we ended that goddamn war in Nam so that guys like you could be free. There's all these possibilities for you, Stephen. Carry the torch now, okay? I can see by looking at you that you're ready. Proud of the fact that you're an individual.
Very proud. So proud.
One thing, this may not be easy to hear, but the hair. Maybe tone it down a bit. The whole thing that you're doing. In my day, it was, hair, long hair, beatniks, paisley, that stuff. And, not liked, that kind of thing. This whole thing you're doing, this statement about the American Indian you're doing, I'm baffled. And not just me. I mean, I'm saying regular guy in the street's gonna be baffled too. And we're hip, we're cool. It's just those guys on the East Coast are never gonna get it, with the... They're not gonna get this in New York, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, Jesus, darling, we sound like our parents.
Yeah. It's difficult, dear.
We just want to support you.
100%. Take the ball and run with it. Make a difference.
But always with love. Remember that, Stephen. Always with love.
Oh, time out. I just want to ask, real quick, if I can. You believe in rebellion, freedom, and love, right?
Absolutely.
Rebellion, freedom.
Yes.
Love.
You two are divorced. So love failed. 2, Mom, your new age are clinging to any kind of scrap of Eastern religion that may justify why the above said love failed. 3, Dad, you're a slick corporate preppy-ass lawyer. I don't really have to say anything else about you, do I, Dad? 4, you moved from New York City, the mecca and hub of the cultural world, to Utah. Nowhere to change nothing, more to perpetuate this cycle of money, greed, fascism, and triviality. I mean, your movement of the people, by the people, and for the people got you nothing. You just hide behind some lost sense of drugs, sex, rock and roll. Oh, kumbaya. I am the future. I am the future of this great nation which you, Father, so arrogantly saved this world for. Look, I have my own agenda. Harvard, out. University, Utah, in. I'm gonna get a 4.0 in damage. I love you guys. Don't get me wrong. It's all about this. But for the first time in my life, I'm 18 and I can say, fuck you!
Stephen, I didn't sell out, son. I bought in. Keep that in mind. That kid is gonna make one hell of a lawyer, huh?
Yeah, he takes after his father. He's a son of a bitch.
Fuck you, dear.
12:19 a.m. I got physical therapy in the morning.
Oh my god. 12:19 a.m. and you're complaining about how late it is.
I gotta be up in soon. I gotta be up in soon hours.
You're in between work right now.
I gotta go to the physical therapy office.
What time?
I 10 o'clock appointment. That
10
means
o'clock?
I gotta leave home at 9:20.
I gotta be at work at 9 a.m.
Well, you're a stronger man than I.
Look, we're looking at the credits right now. Rob Lowe was an electric.
Wow, he's really come a long way.
Yeah, seriously. Good old Rob Lowe.
What a movie! That was a great movie.
It was. Hey, it's funny. Actually, every time I see it, it's always been after a long time, and I always expect it to not hold up. But I think this is the first time I've watched it and really appreciated the editing.
Which is all over the place, but it
was all over the place, but
deserves to be.
It was this must have been cut on Avid or something.
Yeah, I don't think they would be doing that kind of rapid fire stuff.
There was a lot
stuff
of rapid fire stuff. I just can't imagine them doing on a flatbed, with film.
Boy, it'd be hard to even imagine how to do that.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, this must have been a digital thing for sure. But yeah, the pace of the movie, always really fast. There's a lot of talking directly to the camera. I don't know. I don't even have anything to complain about, really.
It's just.
I was really impressed.
It held up. I mean, this is the first time I've seen it in probably 10 years or whatever. But everything holds up pretty damn well. I thought maybe this would age kind of like most movies do from the 90s, where it's kind of presented in this flashbang kind of progress, like Fight Club is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're hearing the narration, where in this case he's narrating, but he's also narrating directly at camera.
We're getting this view of his whole punk lifestyle.
It's very 90s style.
MTV of the 90s style.
Yeah, of storytelling, which I felt like kind of came and went because it kind of got old. Or if it wasn't done well, it just kind of was mundane.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of oh, look, here's another person who doesn't know how to write structure out an actual script.
Yeah, let's just throw everything at the...
So let's just throw this crazy story that's constantly being progressed either by narrative or flash cuts or jumping around in space as far as
mm-hmm.
where we're at in the story. It just it's much harder to build a interesting story without doing any of that. A linear plot line.
Yeah,
in my experience, is significantly more difficult without jumping around, and I think that's why, at least in film school, film studies, whatever, they always told us, don't do montages, don't
rely on that stuff.
Don't rely on narrative, don't rely on any of this other stuff.
Yeah. But it does make certain things easier because as soon as you kind of run out of something to do in the scene, let's flash back to this memory of what's his name, Mike, freaking out and kicking the windows out of a cop car, breaking his handcuffs.
Yeah. So what did this movie for you as far as like watching it like for the first time? Like, why didn't you see this in the 90s?
Why didn't you see it in the 90s?
I did see it in the 90s.
Shut the fuck up, Chad. Don't accuse me.
Okay, Mark.
I don't know. I just never got around to it. I've got a list 1,000 movies long of movies I haven't seen.
Yeah.
That I would like to, and this was one of them. Now I can take it off the list. I just never get around to it. I don't know. I guess I was thinking maybe the movie wasn't for me. Still not sure if it's for me, but it doesn't have to be for me to enjoy it.
I kind of felt like it was for us. It was for the punks of Salt Lake City. It was kind of written. 4 of them. Watching it, it felt like it was written by somebody who grew up in Salt Lake, and these were people that may or may not have existed in their life.
Slightly autobiographical?
Slightly autobiographical, because it's set in 1985, and like we were saying, there's really no reason for it. I mean, I guess there's probably no punk shows today that are nearly... Yeah, the Reagan era, which I feel like we'll kind of go through again here pretty soon.
Hopefully not for long.
But
yeah, I mean, it was made in 97, 98. That was the Clinton era. There was less to rebel against, right. I guess.
It was the pre-9/11 movie thing that we were talking about before. Like,
things really took a turn.
Like, this whole movie, like, punk rebellion and everything was, like, about fighting the system. And at the time, in the 90s, like, there was no real system to really rebel against. You remember, like...
economy was doing good.
Everybody was always complaining, like, we would always say growing up, we're like, oh, we're the generation that's not going to have anything to really latch onto. I remember hearing that all through high school, like, oh, we don't have anything to really attach our generation to. Of course, you look at it now and you're like, well, the internet, we were the last generation before the internet. And then, and then 9/11, and then everything's changed since then, but...
Well, yeah, since theme of the punk movie, surprise, is rebellion.
Yeah.
If it came out 3 or 4 years later after 9/11, rebellion might not be seen as such a great idea.
Right.
People were more in the mood of saying, like, we need a strong government. Don't rebel. Support the government. We need to protect American lives. Yada, yada. But it was a somewhat more innocent time. You could still get away with that. And 85, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like if this movie were made now, it would be about, they show, in the movie there's so many, like, fights breaking out in, like, mosh pits and, like, the cops would come in and just, like, start, beating people,
heads.
But the punks are, like, trashing the cop cars and, like, kicking in windows and stuff, and no one is getting shot, necessarily, in any of these scenes, whereas nowadays...
going to prison.
Yeah, nowadays a movie would be about, how some punk got shot in the head by a bunch of cops in the back alley, like,
or else
unjustly,
how a punk hit a cop in the skull with a pipe, and now that cop is stuck in a wheelchair forever.
Right, exactly.
It would be some,
and then they grow up and become friends together or something.
The fighting in this movie is still sort of fun.
Yeah, it's totally...
Like they do it because it hurts.
It's totally on that same par with Fight Club in terms of the fun movie about these violent things, and that they even say that punks, they fight and they feel something because they fight at some point. I don't know that it doesn't feel like this movie necessarily has a message. It's almost like, I feel like this might have been born from the idea of somebody being wistful about their youth, writing this semi-autobiographical thing, and then going, oh yeah, but now I don't. It's not me anymore.
Yeah,
that's kind of how the movie wraps up. He kind of
grows up and he sees, like, fuck, people can die.
Yeah, his buddy
life isn't
dies.
worth this. he spends his whole existence trying to fight for this imaginary ideal that can only exist in his head, and then the real world kind of confronts him with finality, with death, and his best friend, and he finally sees that it ain't for him. He thought it was this whole time.
I don't know who his dad is played by.
Christopher McDonald, I think that's his name.
That's right. Christopher McDonald from Requiem for a Dream.
Mm-hmm. The game show host.
We've got a winner.
Yeah, he's great in this movie.
He's got some.
Fuck you, dear.
Yeah. I didn't sell out, son. I bought in. That was always the big one that I remembered. I think that one was in the trailer, but was there any quotes in there? You said people had quoted this movie.
I can't remember them now. I don't know, but there's some stuff I liked. This whole statement you're trying to make about Native Americans, I don't understand.
Because he's got a mohawk. Yeah. I mean, I just remember this movie being like, I don't know, if it certainly didn't feel like it was aimed towards me when I first saw it on the shelves at Blockbuster, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And I remembered liking Matthew Lillard from Scream, just because
that was 96, right?
It sounds about right. Just because
So
he
this
was
is a
such
couple
a
years after.
strange, like, different kind of actor, but he was
He really-
so of that era.
Yeah.
Like, he reminded me of all the kids in school that I kind of was friends with, but I also hated.
Because they were annoying as fuck.
Well, they were just always trying to be like, stick their chest out when they walked around and just be a little bit more boisterous than everybody else, but generally tried to be a cool kid, you know. And
Annoying as fuck.
exactly like Matthew Lillard.
Yeah,
in this movie.
he has a way of, he's really big on screen. When he acts, he really acts.
But he strikes me as a nice dude, you know. Nowadays, I don't look at him that way. I look at him and he kind of represents an era.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know he's still acting. I just haven't seen him in anything.
Shaggy.
Well, he was in.
He does the voice of Shaggy. That's all I know him for now.
What was the Clooney movie he was in?
I don't know.
I thought he was in that. The one in Hawaii.
Oh, the Descendants?
Yeah,
He was in that?
Descendants.
I don't remember that.
He was the one sleeping with his wife, I think.
Oh. I mean, I remember the movie. I don't remember him in it, but you're probably right.
Probably totally wrong. It's probably somebody else from Scream. But I feel like he might be.
It's probably Devon fucking Sawa.
Yeah, he's probably the only one acting now out of all this people in this movie.
Neve Campbell was in House of Cards.
It's true.
And
This
that was
movie,
it.
though. Wow.
Oh wait,
Right,
this
right,
movie.
no,
Not,
I can't.
I'm
No, you're
still
right,
on
you're
Scream. I'm a
Yeah.
step behind.
Well, and the other girl. Well, the girl from Star Trek Voyager is in this.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer Lien.
Jennifer Lien, who has kind of gone off the deep end.
What? Do we know the background there?
I think just drugs and alcohol
Oh, perfect.
added up over the years, and then
I mean, when you get that Star Trek Voyager money, you're bound to spend it poorly.
I don't know what she went to jail or court for recently, but I know it wasn't good. I think it was. Oh, it was like.
Was it for rescuing puppies?
It was revealing herself to a minor or something like that.
Yes.
And like yeah.
Perfect.
I don't know what, but I just saw the picture of her
Looking a little cracked out in her mugshot.
looking a little like she's fallen on tough times, which is unfortunate because I thought I always loved her character in Voyager, and then later on she was also in American History X.
Oh.
And those are like the only two. These are like the three things I know her from. I don't know that she ever did anything else.
Sure, she did a few guest spots on something.
But this movie's kind of got a lot of great like actors who are still out and about. Like we were talking about Jason Segel. Like
He was
this was
17.
his
Jason Segel was
first
17.
movie of all time,
Yeah.
and this is like 10. It seems like not 10 years, but at least 6
7
plus.
probably, yeah. Because I think
Before-
How I Met Your Mother came out in 2005, which is 7 years after this.
Yeah, that's mind blowing. Like, where was he for those 7 years? Like, he just
Well, wasn't he also in Freaks and Geeks?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
A lot of people were, quote, discovered on that show.
And it's not like he was you don't even see any range for him in this movie. He's basically he could just as easily have put anybody in that role and just said, okay, act this way and do this.
I don't think you could put anybody in that role. He brings some like weirdly comic rage to the role. You don't expect him to. He's dressed up like this nerdy kind of guy, but he just like explodes in anger and violence.
I was going to say that you looked like me at that time of my
Did
life.
you have a center part?
You said we're the same age. Yeah. I didn't have a center part, but I did have a side part. But I definitely look like a goddamn nerd, I'll say that much.
Yeah, we've all been there, man.
And I was the one who all my friends always made fun of me when I'd go to the heavy metal or techno shows or whatever, and my buddy Andy would always be like, Chad, you don't look like you fit here at all. And I'd be the one like moshing.
Yeah.
Or like
so
raging.
Punch him in the nose.
Raging or whatever. And they'd be like, Chad, you just look so silly. Headbanging at that Cam FDM concert. Like, oh, okay.
These people are not your friends.
No, apparently not.
Your friends would not be saying things like that.
Nope. But it certainly defines my high school period for me. This movie does. Even though I'm not necessarily a punk fan.
I don't think I went to a rock show. Well, I went to a concert when I was in high school still, but I didn't like really go to a smaller like fucking mosh and rock show
until later on when you and I went to a semi-punk show, kind of.
They're sort of punk.
The Schoolyard Heroes, which
is
no longer around, unfortunately.
And the Whiskey A Go-Go?
Whiskey A Go-Go in Hollywood, and Mark.
I got my rib broken by somebody who was throwing their elbows around
because we were grown adults in a mosh pit, and Mark broke his ribs.
Yeah. Somebody really got me good with their pointy elbow, and I still got a lump on my rib cage. I can feel it. Yeah,
it's just calcium.
Right,
built up.
It might puncture my lung one day. No big deal.
I mean, it's okay.
I never went to a doctor because what are they going to do?
You only need one.
They can't put your rib cage in a cast.
Oh, I mean, you could ask for them to like just take your rib cage off.
Too late now.
Replace it with titanium or something.
I'm slowly dying because of this lump on my rib cage.
from a mosh pit. So you and I at least have been to a punk sort of punk show.
Well, that was like a weird horror theme that night. They had a band called Creature Feature and Schoolyard Heroes, which do a lot of like 80s horror themed songs.
Yeah, but at the time, first concert I ever went to was in 1997, and it was seated.
That was your senior year of high school?
I was a junior in high school. Oh. My mom, who worked at Coldwell Banker at the time.
Did she drop you off at the concert and yell out, "Don't do drugs"?
Yeah, no. Thankfully. She didn't go. But at the time, she worked at Coldwell Banker with Sharon Weiland. Also known as the mother of Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots.
Everybody knows Sharon?
Oh yeah, totally.
Sharon Weiland.
Yeah. So we got all these tickets to Stone Temple Pilots in 1997, and then for some reason they put the friends and family of the band like in seats
up front
where you would normally have the pit. So everything where the pit was just seats, and like all the fans of the band were out. Like,
yeah,
this was in like a basketball arena, so everybody's rocking out in their seats like on the edge of the stadium, while the family's just sitting there looking bored because that's what families do. It
right, it's like
family and friends. The band's probably like, well, who the fuck like seated these people right in the front where it basically looks like we're playing to a bunch of old farts. So. That was my first concert. I think the opening band was Local H, which was a Chicago band.
Yeah, I know Local H, yeah.
And I just remember my ears hurt like a mother.
My first concert was in 1999, 9 Inch Nails, Madison, Wisconsin.
There you go.
I was 17 years old. I was not down in the general admission, like the floor area where everybody was like rocking out. It's up in the seats. Went with a friend from high school, and I enjoyed it, but it was,
Were your ears bleeding afterwards?
no, I think we were far enough away from the speakers. It was not so terrible.
Mine hurt like hell after that first show.
I bet, being right down
Now I go to a show and I'm like, I don't feel anything anymore. Now I just know I'm going to be deaf in 5 years. So.
I've already got a ringing in my right ear.
What?
Yeah. Doctors think because I'm not like a hobby shooter, like with a gun. I don't do that. Doctors say it's because I've been to a concert in my life without
Just
ear
one?
protection. Yeah, they say basically if you go to one without wearing earplugs or something,
Yeah.
you're pretty much fucked.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I'm
I
not
don't
deaf
even
yet,
wanna
but I
know.
just got this, it's tinnitus. I got this high-pitched ringing in one ear. The other one's fine. Who knows?
I've been to at least 60. And maybe 3 of those with ear protection.
Oh, okay.
So I'm definitely, I mean, we watched this movie tonight with the volume cranked all the way to 100 out of 100.
Yeah, maybe the neighbors
On
are
my
deaf
TV.
now, and we're
Oh,
doing
my
fine.
neighbor is definitely deaf because I could tell you what she watches in the morning. But nobody else knocks on our door to complain.
Right, true.
And it was a quiet mix, to be honest. Like sometimes when we play DVDs on this machine, it does play a little quieter than usual.
Which is funny because it's about punks. You'd think it'd be super loud.
Yeah.
You know how they like mix albums these days, where everything is like as loud
maxed
as
out instead of being like.
You think the movie would be mixed that way?
That's true.
Just too noisy because it's punk.
Now-
Fuck your ears.
I noticed there's really there is a structure to this movie, but not really.
Well,
like-
sure. I mean,
It's mostly just him introducing us to his world, and then it kind of goes into a little bit more conflict,
and then it all came crashing down.
and then it all comes crashing down. But for the most part, it's just him introducing us around. Like it's kind of like an Empire Records, like being introduced around the record store in this case, or High Fidelity. I feel like he does the same thing when he's introducing all the characters in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, at least the first 2/3 of the movie are just introducing the world, introducing all the characters. Here's what my life has been like for the last 4 years. And then the thing that sets him off, well, it's a couple things that happen all at the same time. There's one girl at a party who he knows takes medication to like keep her mind steady.
Right.
And then he
The
realizes
17-year-old girl.
17-year-old girl, and at this party he realizes she's not taking her meds. So he goes to talk to her brother to find out why. You gotta have her take her meds, and it becomes this whole conversation like, no, you gotta be who you are. You can't like fog yourself or distill yourself with the drugs.
Very Scientologist point of view.
Yeah. And it's sort of the first crack in the shell because he is a punk. He's an anarchist. And there are other moments in the movie where he has these self-discussions trying to defend his point of view and like why he fights with the rednecks and the skinheads and the mods and whoever else. It gives a really fast-paced history lesson of fighting and how fighting is really done by groups, and groups means order, and order is not anarchy. So why do you fight as anarchists? I don't know. Fight. You just fight because you feel
fucking
like it.
fight and
Yeah.
you hit somebody with a chair.
You just fight. But this time, when it really like affects an innocent, I guess, is when he realizes like maybe order is necessary in this case. She's got to take her meds. Otherwise, she's sick. She needs her meds. And
to
then
get the meds, he goes to the bathroom, right?
No, before that, he sees his girlfriend, whom I guess he had an open relationship, but he sees her having sex with some other guy at this party, like immediately after the whole pill conversation, and he kind of flips out. He beats the guy bloody. Obviously breaks up with the girlfriend, but it's another huge crack in his foundation of being an anarchist. That's his identification. Everything about him says he's an anarchist.
No.
But there is this system of
Natural law.
He's in this relationship, and he thought, he really liked this girl, and then, she's existing outside of this system, but he realizes he's part of this system. He's not part of anarchy.
Mm-hmm.
He's just another cog in the machine, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So that's the overall structure. It is a lot of like introductory stuff, and it's all these fun stories and really, really funny scenes. Like it's funny almost from beginning to end.
Yeah. Well, I think everything you just described made me cautious about the sequel that they made to this recently.
Mm-hmm. I saw the guy who plays Bob. Yeah. He's in the sequel.
Is he really?
He's in the sequel.
That's interesting. Must be a prequel then.
Yeah, maybe. Even though they're 20 years older.
And it was a Kickstarter film, and in theory, it seems like a good, yeah, sure, let's go back and revisit SLC Punk and see where these people are at.
They made a sequel to Clerks.
Modern, yeah.
I like this more than Clerks, for what that's worth.
For what that was. Well, yeah, this was definitely, watching this, like, it was really well shot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it didn't actually, it felt like an independent film, but it looked, I bet if you were to clean this movie up, it would look great.
Oh, let's not go down that road again.
Right. Yeah. We could go down that road forever and ever.
Yeah.
But, and like, it's well acted.
I wonder if it's on Blu-ray. Because we watch a DVD, so it's low resolution.
I don't know if it is or not, actually.
It was produced by Jan de Bont, who was a cinematographer.
Executive produced.
Executive produced by Jan de Bont, who was a cinematographer for a long time.
Which tells me that the writer or one of the producers just knew him.
Probably. And
he was like, hey, can we put your name on this movie?
Yeah, it looks good. Here's $100,000.
But I get the feeling, just based on the fact that this movie was well cast from the ground up, like even the kid at the end of the movie, I'm like, at the very end of the scene, I'm like, is that Francis Capra from Veronica Mars, who I know from our local comic shop? Like, and sure enough, you looked him up, and it was.
You really got to give him shit about his child acting.
Francis Capra.
Next time you see him.
Well, yeah, he was in. I thought he was in another movie with Robert De Niro before this, like when he was an actual kid.
That was A Bronx Tale.
Bronx Tale. Yeah, and he was like one of the leads in that. I never saw it.
Get the
fuck out of here. He was the lead kid. Yeah.
He was the lead kid. No way.
Yeah.
Get what?
Yeah, and then he was.
I know you live here, but
Punk,
get
apparently.
out. Get out.
Get out of my house. So yeah, all the way down to the side characters. You've got people who are still acting today, and if you got Jason Segel in his first role ever, apparently this casting director knew what the hell they were doing.
The same year, he had a small role in Can't Hardly Wait with Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Oh shit! I love that movie too.
And Ethan Embry.
I love that movie. I still to this day quote parts of it. Maybe we'll do that when we're going back down. I always attach myself to that movie just because it was the class of 1998, which I was.
Mm.
I don't think they had any other movies that were class of 98. But
that was class of 2000. It seems like cliche.
You guys were a bunch of douchebags.
Right.
Yeah.
A party like it's 1999, all that fucking horseshit.
You might as well have been born in 1990.
That's mean.
That's kind of how I felt about the class of 2000.
We do this
Even
show.
though most of my friends were.
All you do is insult me.
I know.
1990.
I wonder, were there any movies like this that kind of defined your generation? I say it as if your generation's any different than mine.
2 years difference.
From Chicago.
From Chicago. No. The closest I can think, and it's really the previous generation, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah. That's definitely the previous generation.
Yeah. But, growing up, that was the movie that I watched all the
John
time.
Hughes.
I didn't really...
Adventures in Babysitting,
I saw all those movies. The only ones I liked were Weird Science and Ferris Bueller and Uncle Buck.
Oh, good old Uncle Buck. I guess this one for me, because like I was saying before, the whole it's not Colorado, but it's similar just because it's the opposite side of the mountains. They're always in the snow, going to punk shows, rock shows, whatever, or just being out and being kids or growing up, And obviously they're in college, the college age, a little higher than college, I think.
Right, they graduated college.
So it's actually cast pretty well in that sense of people being
The actual age.
except for maybe Jason Segel, who's only 17 or 18.
Yeah, I think he's also supposed to be
my
out
age
right
at the time. I can't even... If he was my age at that time, he must have been 16, 17, 18.
Well, let me ask you about your experience in Colorado. I'll preface this by talking about my experience at Crystal Lake. I just went back to my hometown of Crystal Lake, Illinois, which is a northwest suburb of Chicago. And I talked to a lot of friends, and it seems like since I left 11, 12 years ago, the town has expanded, but we've just got more restaurants and more retail stores, and that's it. There's no culture. Everybody's telling me, the people who still live there, there's nothing to do.
Right.
So they're getting a lot more drug problems in the town, because that's what the kids are basically doing with the time, because there's nothing to do except to work at fucking Target.
They didn't do that when you were growing up there?
There were always drugs, but apparently it's getting out of control. When you were growing up, like, were people more apt to get into a punk scene or do something like this instead of doing drugs?
I seem to remember...
Because my town was pretty white bread. There was no punk scene.
I mean, I grew up in the mountains in Colorado, and I seem to remember punk was actually something that we had a few bands from school, like maybe like 3 or 4 bands that were, of the students in the school. And I think they were all punk bands, and they all played... it seemed like every semester there'd be a concert or two at the local bar. But it was, these kids are like under 21 years old.
Yeah.
And they always seem to be kind of not quite school-sponsored events, but they got us in to the bars. So I think they were kind of family-friendly school punk shows,
right.
basically.
As long as you're not being served alcohol, no problem.
Yeah. And that was kind of, I think, kids kind of, at my school, they would drink, and there was some drugs. I don't recall anything major. I feel like the kids who were really doing coke and stuff like that were probably the preppy kids, because we had a lot of that, because you had the lower middle class people who kind of grew up in Colorado in those areas, and then you also had the transplants from California, which were typically retirees coming in with their kids, and their kids were being raised on like the richer areas of town, and those were the kids that were kind of, at least at the time, that it was definitely a kind of a culture clash, because they were the ones listening to Dave Matthews Band while everyone else was out, punk shows or whatever, or blasting Metallica, or us in the hallway blasting Nine Inch Nails. It was kind of an interesting mix, but I don't think it was any different than really anywhere else, except that there was zero diversity at our school.
Yeah.
It was in good old mountains of Colorado, so. But
I just think the way this movie portrays it seems like, I don't know. It's hard to see that happening anymore. Everything's been so homogenized. Like, you're either doing this thing that everybody else is doing, or you're just staying at home playing World of Warcraft.
Right. You're Snapchatting your whole fucking concert.
Yeah.
With all your friends. Yeah. I hadn't really actually thought about it that way, and now you made me sad.
like this is sort of a snapshot of a weird little cultural, what would you call that? Offshoot.
Well, it's I don't even know if I'd call it an offshoot so much as it was kind of a whole generation whether or not people listen to punk or not, I feel like they did something similar.
A lot of people felt this way, even
Felt
if they
this
weren't.
way,
Yeah.
or they experienced life growing up without the internet, and then eventually things change and kind of go different ways or whatever. But everybody always has their clique, whether or not it's punk or whether or not it's R&B or jazz or whatever. I feel like because I grew up working in a comic book store, and the back half of the store was a jazz record store, so we would occasionally, one of the kids in school would get obsessed with jazz music, and then they'd come into our...
Like you do.
They found out that the comic shop actually had a great jazz store in the back, so suddenly these kids I knew from school, being from different groups or whatever, would suddenly just appear at the comic shop and be like, oh man, I hear this place has great jazz, or that whole period of time in like 1998 when it was like the Squirrel Nut Zippers and like all the swing dance kind of came back for like a summer, and that was it.
Don't tell my sister, she still likes that stuff.
Oh Jesus! I mean, don't get me wrong, I love me some Squirrel Nut Zippers, but yeah, said no one ever. So it definitely makes me kind of wistful for that. For this kind of period of time, it's just kind of a nice little time capsule, but it held up really well.
Yeah.
I was happy to see it again. I wonder if it is on well, now I feel like we need to see the sequel at some point.
Is it already done? It's out?
I'm pretty sure I saw a trailer for it, and that was
okay.
like a year ago, so I don't know that it's any good. I think I saw reviews and they weren't great.
Yeah.
But
Well, in any case, this one is a lot of fun. Totally easy to watch. It felt like it just flew by. It felt like it was an hour long. I don't even know how long it really is, but it felt quick.
no.
Entertaining. If you haven't seen it, don't be like me. You should see it. Don't
Yes.
put it off. It's really worth
Finally, and we didn't even really spoil it for you, really.
Nope. Somebody dies.
It's really just the jokes and the fun and the speed of the movie is really why it's interesting to watch. And plus, everybody kind of is great.
Yeah.
in it.
I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
What was the point of the Mark character, the German guy with the huge gun? What was that part of the movie all about?
It kind of reminds me of you, actually.
What? Okay, I have a large gun, but I don't just bring it out at parties.
He was there. So there's the two main characters. Matthew Lillard is the main punk guy,
Yeah.
and he does drugs from time to time.
Yeah. Acid.
His
pot.
buddy Bob heroin Bob, they call him, doesn't do any drugs. That's his thing.
You call him Heroin Bob because it's ironic. He doesn't even like needles.
Yeah,
He's
doesn't like
petrified of needles.
Petrified of needles. But then when he's going through, Matthew Lillard's explaining all these people that he knows. He introduces their friend Mark, who is this crazy German guy who has a ton of money because he lost his whole family in a plane crash, and
he got a large settlement, basically.
Yeah, and he also has the best drugs in town. I don't know. I felt like he had a purpose, like
Well, he has a connection to the group, but I don't know as far as
what his because he kind of
in this story. What the fuck does he matter?
well, there was
He's
the
just there.
theme of people coming and going through their lives, and he's another person who, shows up, is
One
in their
day-
lives for a little bit, and then one day up and disappeared. And that was kind of what he was saying about Salt Lake City, is that it's not a place where people want to be necessarily. It's where they just kind of pass through.
Like even Mike, Jason Segel,
Yeah.
he goes off to be a botanist,
Right.
and they lost another one.
Because it just makes him so angry, and
Gotta save the jungle.
he gets
Yeah,
so
I
worked
guess
up.
I guess when Bob leaves, he's out of friends, and
Yeah.
that's when he finally, Bob was his last bastion of hanging on to this punk lifestyle. But when he doesn't have Bob anymore, he has no choice. He has to
Time
move on.
Go to Harvard Law because he didn't apply for it. His father applied for him,
Yeah,
but he didn't fuck around on his grades. It's almost like to be an anarchist. He just decided, I'm gonna do great and fuck all of you.
I'm gonna throw my future
I'm
away.
gonna do well enough in high school and college that I'm gonna get into Harvard Law,
and then not go because fuck you.
and then not go because fuck you. Even his dad says at some point, his dad, Matthew Lillard asks his dad, how are the women in this town? And the dad says, like, they're all miserable. They all want to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's totally, the Mark character's totally
He's just another illustration of that.
And
I got you.
So, even though it didn't seem like, there were characters who kind of came and went, like the Jennifer Lien character, the girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of came and went, like she was there.
We don't
for
even
a
see
good
her go. She's
amount
just
of the movie.
out suddenly.
The introduction to her character is running into Matthew Lillard in the mosh pit and yelling, "If you're a man, you will fuck me right now!" Like just screaming that at him.
And he does.
And he does. And just like that, that's almost how their relationship ends.
Mm-hmm.
With him beating up the guy she's screwing. And
just sort of an accident.
And that's kind of the end of that, even though she's in a decent amount of the movie. She kind of exits like she entered. So I guess that's just kind of the running theme of the place. Yeah. It doesn't make me want to go to Salt Lake City.
No, I would not consider this like a tourist.
But it does remind me.
Type movie.
It does remind me of Denver in the winters, going to shows like that or the golf clubs and whatnot, and like running into skinheads occasionally.
Did you beat him up?
I remember this one time we went down to. Okay, I'm gonna admit I went to a Starfest, which is basically a Star Trek convention.
Okay. I thought you
In
were
the
about to say,
90s.
I'm going to admit I've been to a skinhead meeting, but just one time, and I didn't enjoy it.
And speaking of Star Trek Voyager, I'm sure Janeway was at this thing. Anyway, so I just remember sitting down, waiting in line for we were in line for like an hour for the show before us to get out. And I'm waiting there, and this skinhead walks by and like trips over my legs. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, dude. Like, because I was like stretched out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he just turns and looks at me. Of course, he totally did it on purpose.
Just to try and
And
start
I just
shit.
look up and, just gives me a scowl, and he keeps walking. And I sit there, I go back to reading or whatever I'm doing. He comes back and just takes a glass of water and just pours it on my head.
What the fuck?
And then kicks my leg.
Wow.
And like...
I'm glad
I'm
he's
like,
got so much free time he can do
I'm
this.
surrounded by all these Star Trek nerds, of which I was apparently one,
Uh-huh.
even though I won't admit it. And
You just did.
I go and I went up and punched the guy. No. I shoved him. I was like, what the hell, man? Like, because kind of came out of nowhere, and this guy's just standing there like, let's go fight. Let's go outside right now. And like, I just kind of looked around, and I was like, no, man, I gotta go see Janeway or something, something like that. He just wanted to fight so bad, but he wanted to go outside.
That was his Fight Club initiation.
Yeah, that was his fight club.
You could have won.
Because
they have to lose the first
skinhead
fight.
Friends. Oh man, I was so mad. I was more like just surprised to have been down there for this fun time, and then
Yeah, I mean,
run
God, that
into
would
this
really
dude
piss me
who
off.
just seemed like he was just scouring the crowd to like get in fights. And
That's why you get an ankle holster.
just shoot him. Yeah, that'd be great. We could be watching this in jail right now.
You're surrounded by Star Trek nerds. They're all going to be on your side.
Well, the funny thing is
No
that
witnesses.
the second they left, my friends Ryan Schischler and Justin Deneke didn't even get up off their asses to help
fuck
me
them.
out. I know. What the fuck? Of course, afterwards, when I went back and sat down, a couple guys who were in line next to us were like, "Oh man, I totally would have helped you out." I'm like, "Yeah, okay,
Sure.
sure, buddy."
Thanks for all your support back there.
Yeah. And I just remember being pissed off for the rest of the day. I wanted to go find that kid and kick him in the head, but yeah, skinheads and me, like I always had bad run-ins with skinheads.
Well, I don't imagine a lot of people have good run-ins with skinheads. I can say I've had no run-ins with skinheads.
None at all.
None at all. I mean, I think I've probably seen little groups, 3 guys walking together, all with shaved heads, but I've never gotten shit from them. Maybe because I look German.
I mean, it's true. You kind of look like Til Schweiger from this movie.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
You got a potato head. That's what you're telling me.
It reminds me, like, right after Columbine, the thing that was shitty about Columbine is that all my friends and I didn't wear a trench coat, but all my friends did.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the alternative crowd in our high school. We were the ones listening to Nine Inch Nails and, like, basically the same music that those two fucks listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And it was our same, Evergreen High School was in the same county as Columbine High School. And so I graduated in 98, and the shooting was in 99, but all my friends who were still there in class 99 and 2000, like, they, right afterwards, they had, like, don't wear any trench coats to school or whatever. And so I think my friends, who mostly had good taste, most of them did not.
Mm-hmm.
But I still had one or two that were still rebellious and would wear one anyway.
Fuck that. It's not against the law to wear a coat.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were always the most conflicted of my friends, but I can't imagine them going to the same extent as those kids did.
Oh, it's up.
But we would go bowling down at this place down by Columbine and...
Bowling?
Yes, bowling.
Columbine?
And I remember this one guy came in, and I don't know if this has anything to do with what we're talking about really, but it was about kind of just being in a group and being a kind of assaulted by another group or something. And this guy came up and pretended to be an employee of the bowling alley and was like, told my buddy Elliot, like, oh, you gotta take your faggot ass and get out of here with your trench coat.
I'm sure an employee would
we're gonna kick you
phrase
out of
it
here.
like that.
Yeah, right. He's like, we're like, who are you? And he's like, I work here. I was like, okay. And like, you better get out of here. And then, like, we went over and, like, asked the manager at the place, we're like, did you tell our buddy to just get out of here and, like, throw this slur at him and everything? And they were like, no, who did this? So we pointed this guy out.
They kick his ass out?
They kicked him out, and then he started screaming outside, pretending that he had a gun, like in his back pocket.
Does he want to get the cops called?
And, like, they actually cleared out the entire bowling alley and told us to stay inside.
Wow.
And called the cops, and this guy was running around outside. At some point,
so he's probably drunk.
I don't think so. No,
just a lunatic.
I think he had been close to kind of like the whole Columbine thing, probably closer than us, and he saw us as kind of like the enemy.
But
because
that makes him scream, "I've got a gun," and start threatening people.
Yeah,
that's fucking absolutely
at one
insane.
point, it was kind of dumb of us because we were like we'd been trapped in the bowling alley for like an hour or two. And at some point,
bowling for free, I hope.
Matt and I were just like, you know what? Fuck this. Like, we're going to just go get in our cars and, like, go out the front doors. And the bowling alley people were like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. Because, like, he's standing out front, and which is right. You know, if he had a gun, he might have just shot us. And we went outside, and he's out there. He's got a bowling ball in one hand, and his other hand's behind his back. Like,
the fuck did he get that?
Like, he's going to pull he just took it with him.
He just brought it outside?
They kicked him out of the bowling alley.
That's against the law.
He brought it outside and was threatening to, like, throw it at us. Although that would have been hilarious.
He's looking at a lifetime. Yeah.
Like, shock put it, like, 2 feet. And, like, just land in the pavement in front of us and be like...
Crack the sidewalk, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe knock a few of us over and get a strike. But, I don't even know if the kid had a gun or not, because by the time the cops had, like, pinned him on the ground...
Wait, like, you saw this happen? You were...
Yeah. We were.
Wait.
We were standing outside the front doors. By this point, because it'd been, like I said, it had been like an hour or two waiting for this kid to, like, leave.
It took that long for the cops to show up?
If I remember correctly, I remember being there specifically very long. Maybe they didn't call the cops, or
that right away.
This was 17, 18 years ago now. I remember maybe the cops had shown up or something beforehand. Because I remember some things very clearly and other things not so much. Because we were all kind of like frazzled. And what happened from that, I just remember him. He was arrested, but we didn't really stick around for it. Because we were like, we just wanted to get home.
Yeah, as soon as you could, you just took off.
It seemed like a big deal, sort of, but not really. Because it just seemed like, oh, we're just, having to put up with this bullshit again.
Yeah.
Because we were always getting pestered by, the other kids down the hall. Or, we were in, like, I always joke that we were in between the band room and reality. Because, we had all the band nerds, like, in the choir room or whatever. And then we had the hallway, which we hung out in, and then the rest of the school, like, beyond that. And, like, the first people we'd see coming out of the hallway were, like, the JV basketball kids, and fucking hated those kids. We were, like, always fighting with them. So it was, like,
Don't worry, they're only junior varsity.
Right, JV.
I mean, they're
jerks.
They're never going to be anything in life.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We were always up in arms with somebody. So I guess in that sense, this movie kind of, like you said, shows the groups like fighting and not fighting, but how they fought each other. And the redneck kids, which I don't feel like we had that many of in Evergreen, Colorado, strangely enough. But the punks and every school's got different groups.
Sure.
So it's a very good movie in the sense of capturing the era.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like a 90s movie.
That's true. All right, should we end it on that?
We should.
We've talked enough about this.
51 minutes and 11 seconds.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's not even the intro.
Oh, shit.
This is going to be over an hour long.
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
You fuckers have patience. You've made it this far?
If anybody's listening.
All right, later.
Bye.